You didn't vote for this. Nobody held a focus group. Nobody sent a survey. But if you walk into a bike shop today and ask for a high-end road bike with cable shifting, the salesperson will give you a look. Not a rude look, a sympathetic one. The kind of look that says, "We don't really do that anymore." Most cyclists are having this conversation without realizing it's already over. The cables on your next bike are already gone. The industry just hasn't officially told you yet. To understand how this happened, you have to go back to 1984. That was the year Shimano released SIS, Shimano Indexed Shifting. Before SIS, changing gears on a road bike was a skill. You felt the lever, you guided the chain, you learned by ear. After SIS, you clicked. One click, one gear. Precise, repeatable, immediate. The era of friction shifting ended almost overnight, and Shimano's cable-actuated indexed system became the default for every serious bicycle on Earth. For the next 25 years, if something connected a shifter to a derailleur, it was a cable. Always a cable. The system was elegant in its simplicity. A lever pulled a precise length of wire, the derailleur moved a precise distance, the chain fell into the next cog. No battery, no software, no charging port, just tension, spring, and steel. The cable was so fundamental to how bicycles worked that the entire mechanical language of the sport was built around it. Cable stretch, housing contamination, cable tension. These were the things a serious cyclist understood and managed. The cable was not just a component, it was the nervous system of every drivetrain on Earth. But here is where the trouble began. Cables are brilliant when they are new and perfectly adjusted. Then they age. Housing gets contaminated. Springs change tension. In wet weather, in winter, after 5,000 kilometers of serious riding, even a perfectly installed cable drivetrain drifts away from precision. Professional mechanics adjusted drivetrains before every stage race. Even the best cable system in the world is fighting physics every single day. And it is a fight it gradually loses. Shimano knew this. And in 2009, they did something about it. The Dura Ace D27970 launched in January 2009, and the cycling press did not know what to make of it. DI2 stood for Digital Integrated Intelligence. Instead of a cable pulling a derailleur, you pressed a button. An electronic signal traveled to a small servo motor inside the derailleur. The motor moved the chain to the exact gear, every time, under any load, in any weather condition. No cable stretch, no housing contamination, no adjustment required. The first group set cost $4,700, a number that made even serious cyclists laugh. The technology skeptics were out in force. A bicycle does not need a battery. This is a solution looking for a problem. And those critics had a point. For most riders, a well-tuned mechanical drivetrain was already excellent. But something happened in the professional peloton that would change everything. The best riders in the world discovered that DI2 did not just match cable shifting. It was better, not slightly better. Categorically, measurably, repeatably better. Shifts under load, shifts in the rain, shifts at maximum sprint power when a cable system would hesitate or miss. 7 of the last 10 Tour de France races were won on D2 equipped bikes. The technology that started as a $4,000 curiosity became the choice of every serious professional on Shimano, and then began to filter downward, exactly as Shimano's components always had. First Dura Ace, then Ultegra, then 105, then gravel, then mountain bikes, and then, in 2015, SRAM did something that changed the argument entirely. They released ETAP. If DI2 had replaced the cable with a wire, ETAP removed the wire entirely. No connection at all between the shifter and the derailleur. You pressed a button and a signal moved wirelessly through the air to a motor inside the derailleur. which executed the shift. Each derailleur had its own battery, swappable in 60 seconds without tools. The system was so simple to install that even the most cable routing phobic mechanic could build a complete bike in an afternoon. SRAM's argument was clean and devastating. If the chain can fall from one cog to the next at the press of a button, without any physical connection between your hand and the mechanism, then the cable is not just inconvenient, it is unnecessary. That distinction sounds academic until you realize what it means for the entire architecture of a modern bicycle. Here is the thing that most cyclists miss when they argue about electronic versus mechanical shifting. The argument has never really been about shifting quality. Serious riders have known for years that electronic shifts more precisely, more reliably, and more consistently than cable. The argument has been about price, simplicity, and repairability. And those are legitimate concerns. A SRAM transmission drivetrain costs between $1,000 and $2,000. A January 2025 survey of more than 5,000 cyclists found that price was the #1 objection to electronic shifting, cited by 41% of respondents. The battery anxiety is real. The idea of being stranded mid-ride because a derailleur ran flat is not theoretical, and the repair problem is serious. A mechanical cable derailleur can be adjusted roadside with a barrel adjuster and a screwdriver. An electronic derailleur that fails requires a proprietary diagnostic app, dealer access, or replacement components that cannot be fabricated on a garage workbench. These concerns have not gone away. What has gone away is the industry's willingness to accommodate them on premium bicycles. The moment that sealed the fate of cable shifting was not a product launch. It was a design decision made quietly across the entire industry between roughly 2020 and 2024. Frame engineers stopped routing cables. On top-tier road bikes from Trek, Specialized, Cervelo, Giant, BMC, and every other major manufacturer, the internal architecture of carbon frames began to be designed around the assumption of no shift cables. Fully integrated cockpits with no external housing. Internal routing channels sized for thin electronic wires or wireless components only. Frame designs optimized for aerodynamics and stiffness without the constraint of cable guides, housing stops, or the tight bend radii that physical cables require. The frame became the message, and the message was, cables are not welcome here. This is the moment the choice was removed, not from the catalog, but from the engineering. You can theoretically install a mechanical group set on a modern aero frame. In the same way, you can theoretically install a cassette tape player in a modern car. The slot for it does not exist, and nobody will help you cut one. Shimano made it official in summer 2025 when they launched fully wireless Di2. Battery inside the rear derailleur. No junction box, no wiring harness, nothing. The last internal wire in the system, gone. Cable shifting was not discontinued. It was quietly made irrelevant at the level where the industry's decisions get made. And the public, in significant numbers, does not want this. An end of 2024 survey of nearly 4,000 cyclists found that 21% wanted electronic shifting to disappear entirely in 2025. The battery anxiety is real. The repair anxiety is real. The cost is real. These are not the complaints of Luddites. They are the rational responses of riders who want to be able to fix their bike on a mountain pass in the rain with the tools in a jersey pocket. That argument is correct on its merits. But here is what the history of cycling technology tells us about arguments that are correct on their merits. They do not win. The pattern has played out before, more than once, and it always ends the same way. In the 1980s, riders argued against indexed shifting. Friction was tactile, learnable, and required no click mechanisms that could wear out. Indexed won. In the 1990s, riders argued against clipless pedals. Toe clips and straps were adjustable, repairable, compatible with any shoe. Clipless 1. In the 2010s, riders argued against disc brakes. Rim brakes were lighter, simpler, and perfectly adequate on dry roads. Disc 1. Walk into any bike shop today and try to buy a new high-performance road bike with rim brakes. The experience will be instructive. Each of those transitions was presented as optional for years. Each became mandatory within a decade. And in every case, the moment that sealed the transition was not consumer preference. It was frame design. Once the frame stopped accommodating the old system, the argument ended. Electronic shifting is at exactly that moment right now. The frames have already been redesigned. The engineering commitment has been made. By 2025, 47% of cyclists in major surveys had electronic shifting on at least one bike, up from 36% just 4 years earlier. The adoption curve is not slowing. The price will come down, as it always has with cycling technology. $4,700 in 2009 to 105 level D. 2 available for under $600 as a group set today. The battery concerns will be addressed by longer-lasting cells, smarter power management, and low battery warnings that give you a week's notice rather than a sudden failure. The repair problem is real and will stay real, but it is the same problem disc brakes created, and the industry absorbed that trade-off without slowing down. What will not happen is a return to cables at the premium end of the market. The engineering has moved on. The professional peloton has moved on. The frame manufacturers have moved on. What remains is the transition period, the years when cable bikes are still available at mid-range price points, when riders who bought mechanical group sets last year are not yet forced to upgrade, when the argument still feels live and unresolved. But the resolution has already happened. The cables are already gone from the bikes that set the direction of the industry. Everything else is the time delay between a decision being made and the last person realizing it. If you are on a cable bike right now, nothing changes tomorrow. But the next time you buy, the choice will be narrower. And the time after that, narrower still. Subscribe if you want to know what they decide next.